My daughter left my 3 grandchildren at my house 13 years ago. She said she just needed to take a nap. She never came back. I took care of them. I fed them. I loved them when she treated them like trash. But this morning, she didn't come back to say thank you. She came back with a police team, an expensive lawyer, and a lie that I had stolen her children. They thought they had trapped me. They thought I was just a confused old man they could beat. But they didn't know about the envelope I had hidden under the floor in my bedroom. When I finally slammed that old yellow paper on the judge's desk, the look on his face wasn't anger. It was complete shock. He looked at me and whispered, "Do the children know about this?" I looked him straight in the eye and said, "Not yet, but they're about to." Before I tell you what was inside that envelope, please hit the like button and subscribe. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. It helps this old man know his story is being heard. It was 6 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. The only thing I was doing wrong was using too much butter in the pan. My name is Harrison Bennett. Everyone calls me Harry. I'm 70 years old. My knees make cracking sounds like dry wood when it rains, but my hands are steady. I spent 40 years working as a boss on oil rigs in West Texas. That kind of work teaches you 2 things: patience and how to cook a good breakfast. The kitchen was quiet except for the popping of bacon grease and the low hum of the refrigerator. This was my favorite time of day. In the other room, my 3 reasons for living were still asleep. Lucas is 17 now. He plays football for the school team and eats a lot. Emma is 15, super smart, and already talking about becoming a lawyer. And little Noah, is 13. He was just a 2-month-old baby wrapped in a dirty towel when his mother left him here. I flipped the eggs over easy, just the way Noah likes them. I was thinking about my money for the week. My retirement check is $3,200 a month. After I pay for the house, the bills, and food for 3 growing kids, I usually have about $50 left over. I had been saving that $50 in a coffee can for 6 months to buy Lucas a new baseball glove for the playoffs. It's not a fancy life. We don't have trips to Europe or expensive cars. But this house is warm and it's full of love. Or at least it was until the front door exploded. I didn't even hear a knock. 1 second I was reaching for the salt shaker. The next second there was a loud boom that shook the picture frames off the hallway walls. Wood pieces flew across the living room like arrows. Before I could even turn off the stove, the kitchen was full of men in police gear. They were screaming commands that echoed through the house. "Police! Get on the ground! Hands where I can see them!" I'm an old man, but I'm not slow. My first thought was to run to the hallway to protect the bedrooms, to protect the kids. I took 1 step and a heavy boot kicked my legs out from under me. I hit the floor hard. My face smashed into the cold tiles right next to a drop of bacon grease. Pain shot through my bad shoulder, but I ignored it. "Don't hurt them," I yelled, my voice rough from the floor. "There are children in the house. Please don't hurt the children." A knee pressed into my back, holding me down. I felt the cold metal of handcuffs clicking tight around my wrists. My heart was pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. I could hear them waking up now. I heard Emma scream. I heard Noah crying. "Get off him!" That was Lucas, my brave boy. I twisted my neck trying to see. Lucas had run out of his room in his underwear and t-shirt, ready to fight an army to save his grandpa. "Stay back, Lucas!" I shouted. "Don't move, son. Just stay back." 2 officers grabbed Lucas and pushed him against the wall. "He's just a boy," I begged. "He's 17. Please." That's when the crowd of uniforms moved aside. The officers stepped to the side, making a path like they were making way for a queen. And in walked the devil herself. It had been 13 years, but I would know her walk anywhere. Rachel, my daughter. But this wasn't the Rachel I remembered. The last time I saw her, she was very thin. Her skin was gray from drugs and cheap alcohol. She had a bruise on her cheek from whatever drug dealer she was sleeping with that week. She had left 3 crying babies in my living room, said she was going to buy milk, and disappeared. The woman standing in my kitchen now looked like she had just stepped out of a magazine. She was wearing a cream-colored coat that probably cost more than my truck. Her hair was blonde and perfectly styled. She had big dark sunglasses on. She took them off slowly to show eyes that were perfectly made up with waterproof makeup. She looked healthy. She looked rich. And she looked at me with disgust that made my blood run cold. "There he is," she screamed, pointing a fancy fingernail at me. "There's the monster, officer. That's the man who stole my babies." I lay there with my cheek pressed against the floor, unable to believe what I was hearing. Stole them? I didn't steal them. I saved them. I picked them up from the terrible place where she left them. Rachel rushed past me, stepping over my legs like I was a piece of garbage. She ran toward the hallway where the kids were huddled together, terrified. "Oh, my poor darlings," she cried. Her voice was loud and fake. Sounded like a bad TV show. "Mommy is here. Mommy finally found you. She's been looking for you for so long." I watched Noah pull back. He didn't know who this woman was. He was a baby when she left. To him, she was a stranger smelling of expensive perfume and causing trouble. But Rachel didn't care. She grabbed Noah and Emma, pulling them into a tight hug. "Get away from them," I shouted, fighting against the handcuffs. The officer on my back pressed harder, forcing the air out of my lungs. "You have no right, Rachel," I said angrily. "You left them. You left them in dirty diapers for 2 days. You walked out." She turned to look at me. For a split second, the fake mask dropped. She gave me a smile that was pure ice, a smile that said, "I won." Then she turned back to the police officer standing next to her with tears instantly flowing down her cheeks. "You see, officer?" she sobbed. "He's confused. He's violent. He's kept them as prisoners here for 13 years. He told me if I ever came back, he would kill them. I've lived in fear every single day." Lies. It was all lies. But the police didn't know that. They saw a well-dressed, upset mother and a rough-looking old man on the floor of a messy kitchen. "Harrison Bennett," the officer said, pulling me up by my arms. "You're under arrest for 3 counts of kidnapping, taking children from their parent, and child endangerment. You have the right to remain silent." They dragged me out the front door. My neighbors were all outside on their lawns in their bathrobes, watching. Mrs. Higgins, who I've shared garden vegetables with for 10 years, covered her mouth in horror. I wanted to shout to them. I wanted to tell them I was innocent, but the shame choked me. As they pushed me into the back of the police car, I looked back at the house. The front door was hanging off its hinges, and there on the porch was the final knife in my heart. Rachel had her arms around the kids. Lucas looked like he wanted to throw up. Emma was crying silently. Noah looked lost. And standing in front of them was a man with a camera, a photographer. Rachel was posing. She tilted her head just right to catch the morning light. She made sure her hair looked perfect. She squeezed the kids tighter, not to comfort them, but to make sure they were in the picture. "Hold it right there, Mrs. Bennett," the photographer said. "This is the cover of the year, the reunion of the century." Camera flashes went off, blinding me through the police car window. My grandkids were being used as props in her sick game. I watched as the police car pulled away, leaving my entire world behind. I had spent 13 years protecting them from dangerous people. I worked extra shifts. I learned how to braid hair for Emma. I learned the rules of baseball for Lucas. I stayed up all night when Noah had fevers. I gave up my retirement, my savings, and my peace to fix what she broke. And now, in just 20 minutes, She had come back from nowhere to burn it all down. But as I sat in that cage watching my neighborhood disappear, I stopped crying. A cold anger started to rise up in my chest. It was the same anger that kept me going on the oil rigs when the storms hit. Rachel thought she had won. She thought the expensive coat and the tears would fool everyone. She thought I was just a poor, helpless old man. She forgot one thing. She forgot who raised her. She forgot that I keep everything. And she definitely forgot about the yellow envelope I buried under the floor the night she sold her soul. The police officer looked at me in the rearview mirror. "You got anything to say, old-timer?" he asked. I leaned my head back against the seat and closed my eyes. "Not yet," I whispered. "Not yet." But the war had just started, and I was going to burn her kingdom to the ground. The jail cell smelled of bleach, old sweat, and sadness. It was a cold factory smell that settled deep in your lungs and stayed there. I sat on a metal bench that was bolted to the floor. My joints were hurting from the coldness. Around me were men who looked like they belonged in a place like this. Hard eyes, scarred knuckles, tattoos that told stories of bad choices. And then there was me, Harrison Bennett, 70 years old, wearing orange slides that were 2 sizes too big and wondering if my grandkids had eaten breakfast. A guard hit the bars with his stick. "Bennett, legal." They marched me down a hallway that echoed with shouts and curse words to a small meeting room. Sitting at a scratched metal table was a boy who looked like he hadn't started shaving yet. His suit was cheap and he was sweating through his shirt. "Mr. Bennett," he said, his voice cracking slightly.
"I'm Arthur.
"I'm your public defender." He didn't look me in the eye. He was shuffling papers nervously, dropping a pen, picking it up. "Look, Arthur," I said, my voice rough. "I don't need a long speech. Just tell me when I can go home to my kids." He made a face. "That's the problem, sir. The judge said no bail at first, but we managed to get it set. 500,000. I let out a short, bitter laugh. "Son, I have a retirement check that covers the light bill and the groceries. I have 50 hidden in a coffee can for a baseball glove. You might as well have said 5 million. Arthur pulled a tablet out of his briefcase. "It's not just the bail, Mr. Bennett. It's the story. You need to see this." He tapped the screen and slid it across the table. I didn't want to look. I wanted to close my eyes and wake up in my kitchen flipping eggs. But I looked. It was a news conference. The banner at the bottom of the screen read "Nightmare in Suburbia. Grandfather Kidnaps 3. Rachel was standing at a podium. Microphones were pushed in her face like hungry snakes. Next to her stood a man who looked like he was carved out of expensive marble. Sterling Holt. I knew him. Everyone knew him. He was the kind of lawyer who chased bad situations and ruined lives for money. "My father is a dangerous fanatic." Rachel was sobbing into the cameras. She looked fragile, broken. It was the best performance of her life. 13 years ago, I came home from work to surprise my babies. He was waiting on the porch. He had a shotgun. I felt my hands curl into fists under the table. A shotgun? The only gun I owned was an old BB gun I used to scare raccoons away from the trash cans. He told me if I didn't leave, he would kill me and the children. She continued, wiping a tear from her perfect cheek. He forced me to run. He locked my babies in a dungeon. He kept them in the dark. He told them I was dead. For 13 years, I've been living in terror, hiding, praying for this day. A dungeon? My house sits on a concrete slab. There's no basement. The dark place she was talking about was a bedroom with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling that I glued there myself, standing on a wobbly ladder, so Noah wouldn't be afraid of the night. The video cut to Sterling Holt. He stepped forward, his voice loud with fake anger. "We will not rest until this monster is put away for good. Harrison Bennett is a predator who stole a mother's love. We're suing for full custody and money for the emotional torture he put on this brave woman. I pushed the tablet away so hard it nearly slid off the table. Lies, I growled. It's all lies, Arthur. There was no gun. There was no dungeon. Arthur looked doubtful. He was young and he was watching a woman cry on HD video. Mr. Bennett, the court of public opinion is already saying you're guilty. If you have any proof, any witnesses. I closed my eyes and the memory of that day 13 years ago washed over me. It was so clear. I could smell the dust and the desperation. It wasn't a shotgun I was holding that day. It was a set of keys. Rachel had come to me shaking, her skin gray from whatever pills she was taking. She owed money, a lot of money, to people who don't send warnings. They're going to kill me, Daddy, she had screamed, pulling at her hair. They're going to hurt the kids. I didn't have $5,000 in the bank. So I walked out to the driveway. I looked at my 1978 Ford F-150, my truck. I had fixed that engine with my own hands. It was the only thing I owned that was just mine. I drove it to the used car lot that afternoon. I sold it for cash. I walked back home 5 miles in the heat. I handed Rachel the stack of bills. Take it, I had told her. Pay them. Get clean. Be a mother. She grabbed the money. She didn't say thank you. She didn't even look at the babies sleeping in the playpen. She just ran. And now here she was, telling the world I chased her off with a weapon. Mr. Bennett, Arthur said, his voice sounding far away. We need to prepare a statement. Maybe plead diminished capacity. Given your age. I stood up. The chair scraped loudly against the floor. I'm not confused, son, and I'm not pleading to anything. I saved those kids. I sold my truck to save her life, and she sold me out for a headline. The guard opened the door. Time's up. They moved me from the meeting room to a general holding cell while they did my paperwork. It was a larger cage filled with 20 or 30 men. A television was mounted high on the wall, protected by a plexiglass shield. The news was on. Of course it was. Breaking news flashed in red. The screen showed a helicopter shot of my house. Police tape was wrapped around the porch. My front door was smashed in. Then my mugshot appeared. I looked crazy. My hair was wild from the struggle. My eyes were wide with shock. One of the men on the bench shifted. He was a giant of a man with tattoos covering his neck and arms. He was watching the TV closely. He turned his head slowly and looked at me. Then he looked back at the screen. Hey, he grumbled, his voice deep and scary. The talking in the cell stopped. It went dead silent. The man stood up. He pointed a thick finger at the TV. That's you, the kidnapper. I backed up until my shoulders hit the cold concrete wall. I held up my hands, palms open. It's not what they're saying, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. It's a lie. The man didn't listen. In here, there's a ranking system and people who hurt kids are at the bottom, below the rats, below the dirt. You locked them in a dungeon, old man, he spat. You stole them from their mama. He took a step toward me, then another. The other prisoners formed a circle, blocking the view of the guards. I saw the rage in his eyes. It was the same rage I felt when I looked at Rachel. But his was pointed at me. I prepared myself. I was 70 years old. I had bad knees and a bad shoulder. I wasn't going to win this fight. He pulled his arm back. I saw the fist coming like a speeding train. For the kids, I thought. I have to survive for the kids. His fist connected with my jaw. A blinding white light exploded in my skull. The taste of copper filled my mouth. My head snapped back and hit the concrete wall with a sound like a cracking branch. My legs gave out. I slid down the wall, the sounds of the jail fading into a high-pitched ring. As the darkness swallowed me up, the last thing I saw was the news ticker on the TV screen above. Mother reunited with children, a miracle in Texas. Then everything went black. I woke up in the medical room with a headache that felt like a drill grinding into the base of my skull. My jaw was swollen tight, and every time I swallowed, I tasted copper and old pennies. The doctor gave me 2 Tylenol and a piece of paper that said I was okay for release. My public defender, Arthur, was waiting for me by the exit gate. He looked even more nervous than he had the day before. He told me he had managed to get bail money, but the cost was steep. It was everything I had, my house, the deed to the land my father bought 50 years ago. If I missed a court date or broke a rule of my release, the bail bondsman would take the roof over my head. I signed the papers with a shaking hand. I didn't care about the house. A house is just wood and brick. Without those kids, it was just a box of air. Anyway, the taxi ride home was a slow embarrassment. I kept my head down, but I could feel the driver watching me in the rearview mirror. He knew who I was. My face was on every news channel in the state. The kidnapper grandpa, the monster who stole children. When he dropped me off at the curb, he didn't even take my money. He just spit out the window onto my driveway and drove away fast. I stood on the sidewalk and looked at the wreckage of my life. The police tape was blowing in the wind like some twisted party streamer. The front door, the heavy oak door I had refinished 3 times over the years, was splintered down the middle. The lock was hanging by a single screw. I stepped over the yellow tape and pushed the broken door open. It groaned on its hinges. The silence hit me first. For 13 years, this house had been a symphony of noise. Cartoons blaring on Saturday mornings, sneakers squeaking on the hardwood, the sound of Emma practicing her violin, which sounded like a dying cat for the first 2 years, but eventually became beautiful. The sound of Noah laughing at his own jokes. Now there was nothing, just the low hum of the refrigerator and the sound of my own rough breathing. The police had tossed the place. Couch cushions were slashed open. Drawers were pulled out and dumped on the floor. Cereal boxes were overturned in the kitchen, spilling Cheerios across the tiles like dry rain. But as I walked down the hallway, I realized the police weren't the ones who had done the real damage. The walls of the hallway used to be covered in photos, school portraits, pictures of Lucas catching his first fish, Emma in her ballet costume, Noah with chocolate cake smeared all over his face on his first birthday. The frames were still there, hanging crookedly on the nails, but they were empty. The glass was smashed on the floor and the photos were gone. Rachel had taken them, or worse, she had destroyed them. She wanted to erase the last 13 years. She wanted to pretend that I had never been their father. I walked into the boys' room. It was a mess. Mattresses overturned, clothes scattered. I sat down on the edge of Noah's bed frame. My boot hit something hard and plastic. I reached down under the bed and pulled it out. It was a pacifier, old and yellowed with a little cartoon bear on the front. Noah had hidden it there years ago when we told him he was too big for it. I held that small piece of plastic in my rough hand, and suddenly I wasn't in a silent, broken house anymore. I was back in the driveway 13 years ago on a humid Tuesday night. The air smelled of coming rain and cheap vodka. Rachel was standing by the open door of a rusted Camaro. The engine was running and the muffler was coughing out black smoke. A man I didn't know was in the driver's seat, tapping on the steering wheel impatiently. He had tattoos on his neck and eyes that looked like dead shark eyes. Rachel looked thin. Her collarbones poked out of her skin like wire hangers. She was holding a lit cigarette in one hand and a diaper bag in the other. I had begged her. I stood in the driveway in my work boots and pleaded with her. "Rachel, you can't go," I had said. "You have a baby who needs milk. You have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. They need their mother." She took a drag of the cigarette and blew the smoke in my face. It smelled chemical and sour. "I'm done, Daddy," she said. Her voice wasn't sad. It was annoyed. "I'm done with the crying. I'm done with the diapers. I'm done with this town. I want to live. I want to be free. She reached into the car window and pulled out a key ring. She threw it at my chest. It hit me and fell into the dirt. There, she said. Those are the keys to the house. You want them so bad, you keep them. They're just little monkeys anyway. Just baggage. Little monkeys. Baggage. That's what she called her own flesh and blood. I picked up the keys from the dirt. When I looked up, she was already getting into the car. Rachel, I yelled. If you leave now, don't come back. Don't come back unless you're clean. She laughed. It was a high, wild sound. Don't worry, old man. You won't see me again. I'm going to Vegas. The Camaro screeched out of the driveway, leaving tire marks on the pavement. I stood there watching her taillights disappear around the corner. Then I heard a cry from inside the house. It was Noah. He was hungry. I went inside. I picked him up and I made a promise to a baby who couldn't even focus his eyes yet. I promised him he would never be baggage. I promised him he would be the center of the world. The memory faded and I was back in the silent room holding the old pacifier. The irony was bitter enough to choke on. She claimed I chased her off with a shotgun. The truth was she threw them away like old trash because they got in the way of her freedom. And now that they came with a trust fund, she suddenly remembered she was a mother. A heavy knock on the door frame pulled me out of my thoughts. I put the pacifier in my pocket. Standing in the doorway was a sheriff's deputy. I knew him. It was Miller. We fished in the same creek sometimes. He couldn't look me in the eye. He held out a stack of papers. I'm sorry, Harry, he mumbled. I really am, but I have to give you these. I took the papers. It was a restraining order. I was ordered to stay 500 yards away from Lucas, Emma, and Noah Bennett. I was ordered to have no contact, direct or indirect. I was ordered to give up any guns. She has them at the Ritz-Carlton downtown, Miller said quietly. She has private security. Don't go near there, Harry. If you break this, they'll cancel your bail and you'll rot in a cell until trial. I nodded. I understood. The law was a hammer and right now Rachel was holding the handle. Miller left, leaving me alone in the tomb of my house. I walked to the kitchen. I needed to eat something. My stomach was cramping from hunger, but the thought of food made me feel sick. I opened the fridge. There was the carton of eggs from yesterday morning, still sitting on the counter where I left them. The milk had gone warm. I poured the milk down the sink. I started cleaning. It was the only thing I could think to do. I swept up the Cheerios. I threw away the broken glass from the picture frames. I scrubbed the boot prints off the floor. I tried to put my world back in order, but the silence was heavy, pressed against my ears. It was 9 o'clock at night when it happened. I was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the wall, wondering if Emma had her inhaler. She gets asthma when she panics. Rachel wouldn't know that. Rachel wouldn't know where we kept the medicine. The landline phone on the wall rang. It startled me so bad I nearly knocked over my chair. Nobody calls the landline anymore except telemarketers. We only kept it because the cell service is spotty in storms. It rang again, loud and shrill. I walked over to it. My hand hovered over the phone. If this was a reporter, I was going to rip the cord out of the wall. I picked it up. Hello. There was a static hiss, then a heavy breathing. Grandpa. The voice was a whisper, terrified and shaking. My heart stopped. It was Lucas. Lucas, I said, gripping the phone so hard the plastic creaked. Son, are you okay? Where are you? I'm in the bathroom, Lucas whispered. I stole a maid's phone. Grandpa, you have to help us. She's crazy. She's absolutely crazy. Slow down, son, I said, trying to keep my voice calm, even though my knees were shaking. What's happening? She locked us in a suite. Lucas said. She took our phones. She took Emma's inhaler because she said it looked ugly in the photos. Grandpa, she hired a styling team. She's making us wear these scratchy clothes and posing us for Instagram. She keeps pinching Noah when he doesn't smile. I felt a red-hot rage flood my vision. She took the inhaler. She was hurting them. Lucas, listen to me, I said. You have to be strong. You have to protect your brother and sister. I can't, Lucas sobbed. There are big men outside the door, security guards. They won't let us leave. She told us you were going to prison forever. She said we belong to her now. She keeps talking about money, Grandpa. She's on the phone with lawyers talking about a trust fund. She doesn't want us. She wants the check. I knew it. In my gut, I knew it wasn't love. It was greed. Lucas, I need you to listen, I said firmly. I'm not going to prison. I'm going to get you back. Promise. But I need you to do exactly what I say. Keep your heads down. Don't fight the guards, but keep your eyes open. Remember everything she says. Can you do that? I think so, Lucas sniffled. But Grandpa, hurry. She's talking about taking us away. She said something about Switzerland, about a boarding school. Switzerland. She was going to ship them off like packages. Grandpa, I have to go, Lucas whispered urgently. She's coming. There was a sound of a door handle rattling. Then a sharp female voice in the background screaming, "Who are you talking to?" The line went dead. I stood there in the dark kitchen holding the phone that was now just a piece of plastic. The dial tone buzzed in my ear like a warning. 500 yards. The law said I had to stay away. The law said she was their mother. But the law didn't hear the fear in my boy's voice. The law didn't know about the inhaler. I hung up the phone. I walked to the bedroom. I pulled my old duffel bag out from the closet. I wasn't going to sit here and wait for a court date while she hurt them. I needed help. And I knew exactly who to call. He was a man I hadn't spoken to in 20 years. A man who owed me a favor from a time when we were both young and stupid in the oil fields. A man who used to be a private investigator before the whiskey took over. Dutch. If anyone could find out where the money was coming from, it was him. And if anyone could help me break a few rules without getting caught, it was Dutch. I grabbed my keys. The silence in the house wasn't heavy anymore. It was a countdown. "Not yet, Rachel," I whispered to the empty room. "You haven't won yet." The silence in the kitchen after the line went dead was heavy enough to crush a man. My hand was still gripping the phone, white-knuckled and shaking. Lucas had managed to whisper the rest of the horror story before the connection cut. It was worse than I thought. Rachel had turned that hotel suite into a prison and a stage. She had forced Emma into a dress that was too tight and too short, pushing her in front of a ring light to film a video for her new followers. She made them smile. She made them say they missed their mommy. And when the camera stopped rolling, she locked them in the bedroom and went to the hotel bar. But the part that made my blood turn to ice was Noah. My 13-year-old boy has an allergy to peanuts so bad that even the dust from a shell can close his throat in 2 minutes flat. We keep EpiPens in the kitchen, in his backpack, and in the glove box of the truck. Rachel didn't know that. How could she? She left before he was eating solid food. Lucas told me she had ordered room service. She threw a plate of peanut butter cookies on the bed and told Noah to eat them for the camera because it would look cute. When Noah refused, terrified, she grabbed his face. She tried to force it into his mouth. Lucas had to physically shove his own mother away to save his brother's life. She screamed at them. She called them ungrateful brats. She took away the EpiPen Lucas had in his pocket, saying he was being dramatic. My grandson was sitting in a hotel room with a woman who almost killed him out of not knowing and not caring, and he had no medicine. I couldn't sit there. I grabbed my keys and drove to the police station.
I drove fast.
The speedometer climbed past the limit, but I didn't care. I spent 40 years on oil rigs in the Permian Basin. I started as a roughneck and ended as a boss. In that world, when a pipe bursts or a pressure valve fails, you don't file a complaint. You fix it. You use your hands, your back, and your will to stop the disaster before it kills your crew. You solve problems with action. But as I walked into the police station under the buzzing fluorescent lights, I realized my world of action meant nothing here. I marched up to the front desk. The sergeant on duty was a man named Kowalski. I had fixed his lawnmower once for free. He looked up from his computer, saw my face, and his expression hardened like concrete. "I need to file a report," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "My grandchildren are in immediate danger." Kowalski leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "Is that right, Mr. Bennett? Danger from who?" "Their mother." "Yes, their mother," I snapped. "She tried to feed a child with a deadly nut allergy peanut butter cookies. She took away his medical device. That's endangerment. You need to send a welfare check to the Ritz-Carlton right now." Kowalski let out a short, dry laugh. It was a cruel sound. "Let me get this straight. The man who's currently out on bail for kidnapping 3 children wants to report the victim for giving her son a cookie. Do you know how crazy that sounds?" "It's not crazy." I slammed my hand on the counter. "It's the truth. She doesn't know them. She's hurting them." Kowalski stood up. He was a big man, but I had faced down men twice his size when a rig was blowing out. I didn't flinch. "Look, old man," Kowalski said, his voice dropping to a threat. "You're lucky you're not in a cell right now. You're the suspect. She's the mother. She has custody. If she wants to feed her kid a cookie, she can feed him a cookie. You don't get to dictate how she parents the children you stole." Stole. That word again. Like I was a thief in the night instead of the only person who cared if they lived or died. "She almost killed him," I whispered, my voice breaking. "Go home, Bennett," Kowalski said, pointing to the door. "Before I cancel your bail for harassment. Get out of here." I walked out of the station feeling smaller than I ever had in my life. On the rig, I commanded respect. When I gave an order, men moved because they knew I kept them safe. Here I was just a crazy old criminal. The law was a wall and I was smashing my head against it. I walked to my truck parked in the dark corner of the lot. The night air was thick and humid. I felt powerless. It was a feeling I hated more than pain. I reached for the door handle, but a voice stopped me. "Mr. Bennett." I turned around. A silver Mercedes was parked 2 spots over, idling quietly. Leaning against the hood was Sterling Holt. In person, he looked even more like a shark than he did on TV. His suit was perfectly fitted, dark blue and sharp. His shoes shone under the streetlights. He was smoking a thin cigarette, holding it like a dart. I stiffened. My hands balled into fists at my sides. "What do you want?" Holt took a long drag and blew the smoke toward the sky. He pushed off the car and walked toward me. He didn't look scared. He looked bored. "I'm here to offer you a parachute, Harry." "Can I call you Harry?" "You can call me Mr. Bennett," I said. "And I don't want anything you have to offer." Holt chuckled. He reached into his jacket pocket. I tensed, ready to swing if he pulled a weapon, but he pulled out a white envelope. He held it out to me. "Inside this envelope is a cashier's check for $50,000. I looked at the envelope, then at his face. $50,000? That was more money than I had saved in 10 years. "What's this for?" I asked. "It's a severance package," Holt said smoothly. "Rachel is feeling generous. She knows you took care of them for a long time. She wants to thank you. All you have to do is sign a document." I stared at him. "What document?" "Just a standard voluntary giving up of parental rights," Holt said, waving his hand like it was nothing. You admit that you were overwhelmed, that you're getting too old to care for 3 teenagers. You agree to drop any fight for custody. You take the money, you move to a nice retirement community in Florida, and you never contact Rachel or the children again. The rage started in my stomach and burned its way up my throat. It was hot and blinding. You want me to sell them? I said, my voice low. Holt shrugged. I want you to be realistic, Harry. Look at you. You're 70. You're broke. You're facing felony kidnapping charges. I'll destroy you in court. I'll paint you as a confused, abusive hoarder who stole those kids. You'll die in prison. Or you can take the 50 grand and go fishing. It's a win-win. I looked at the envelope. 50,000. It was the price of my honor. It was the price of Noah's life. I reached out and took the envelope. Holt smiled a greasy, winning smile. Smart man, he said. I knew you were reasonable. I held the envelope up to my face. I could smell the expensive paper. Then, very slowly, I tore it in half. Holt's smile vanished. I tore it again and again until it was nothing but confetti. I threw the pieces at his shiny shoes. You tell my daughter, I said, stepping into his personal space, that I'm not for sale, and you tell her that if one hair on Noah's head is harmed because of her stupidity, I won't need a lawyer. I'll come for her myself. Holt stared at the shredded paper on the asphalt. His face twisted into a sneer. You're making a mistake, old man, he hissed. A big one. I gave you a chance. Now I'm going to bury you. He got back into his Mercedes and peeled out of the lot, leaving me standing in the exhaust fumes. I watched his taillights fade. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from adrenaline. They thought they could buy me. They thought I was just some poor old fool who would trade his family for a paycheck. They had no idea who they were dealing with. I got into my truck and slammed the door. I didn't have money. I didn't have the law on my side. But I had something they didn't. I had the truth. And I had a friend named Dutch who could find a needle in a haystack if the needle was made of gold. I started the engine. The old Ford rumbled to life. I wasn't going home to sleep. I was going to find out why Rachel suddenly had the money to hire a lawyer like Sterling Holt and why she needed my grandkids so desperately that she would try to bribe me into silence. The war wasn't over. It had just begun. I drove through the night with the image of that shredded check burning in my mind. 50,000. That's what Sterling Holt thought my grandchildren were worth. That was the price tag Rachel had put on 13 years of my life. It made me sick. But more than that, it made me suspicious. Rachel had left town with a guy named Travis who stole copper wire from construction sites to buy meth. She didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. Now she was back with a high-priced lawyer, a wardrobe full of designer clothes, and a private security team. Where did the money come from? It wasn't from Travis. Guys like that don't leave inheritances. They leave debts and criminal records. I pulled my truck up to a rusted Airstream trailer parked in the back lot of a storage facility on the edge of town. A single yellow bulb buzzed over the door, attracting moths the size of my hand. This was the office and home of Dutch. We served together in the Gulf. He was the best reconnaissance man I ever saw until the bottle got its hooks in him. Now he worked as a private investigator for people who couldn't go to the police. He found lost dogs, cheating husbands, and the occasional skipped bail bond. I banged on the aluminum door. It rattled like a tin can. Dutch, open up. It's Harry. There was a crash from inside. Then a string of curse words. The door swung open. Dutch stood there wearing nothing but boxer shorts and a stained tank top. He held a revolver loosely in one hand and a bottle of bourbon in the other. His beard was gray and wild, and his eyes were bloodshot maps of bad decisions. Harry, he grunted, squinting into the dark. You look like you got hit by a truck. I feel like it, Dutch. Can I come in? He stepped aside and I walked into the smell of old paper, gun oil, and rot-gut whiskey. The trailer was a mess of files, computer parts, and empty bottles. But on one side, there was a desk with 3 monitors humming with blue light. That was Dutch's altar. I sat on a plastic crate and told him everything. The raid, the arrest, the cookies, the bribe from Holt. Dutch listened without blinking, taking pulls from his bottle. When I finished, he set the gun down on the desk with a heavy clunk. "So she's back," he said, his voice gravelly. "And she's flush with cash. She's loaded, Dutch. Sterling Holt doesn't get out of bed for less than 10 grand a retainer. She has bodyguards. She has a suite at the Ritz. Where's it coming from?" Dutch cracked his knuckles. "Let's find out." He sat at the computer and his fingers flew across the keyboard. For a drunk, he typed faster than anyone I knew. "First things first," Dutch muttered. "Let's track the boyfriend, Travis Miller." I watched the screen as lines of code and databases flashed by. Took Dutch 5 minutes. "Well, here's your first dead end," Dutch said, pointing at the screen. "Travis Miller is dead. Died 2 months ago in a motel in Oklahoma. Fentanyl overdose. He had 40 in his pocket and a warrant for his arrest." "So it wasn't him," I said. "He didn't win the lottery." "No," Dutch said, rubbing his beard. "But look at this." Rachel was listed as the next of kin on the coroner's report. She identified the body, but she didn't claim his ashes. She let the state bury him. "That sounds like her," I said bitterly. Dutch leaned back. "Okay, so the money didn't come from the boyfriend. Did she get a job? Did she rob a bank?" He pulled up her financial records, or at least the ones he could access through his back doors. "Nothing," he said. "No employment history for 10 years. No credit cards in her name until 3 weeks ago. Then suddenly, boom. Platinum cards. Bank accounts opened in the Cayman Islands. A shell company called RB Holdings. Where did the seed money come from?" I asked, leaning in. Dutch squinted. "Wire transfer. A big one. It came from a law firm in Dallas. McIntyre and Sloan." "Who are they?" Dutch typed the name. "They're estate lawyers, Harry. Big time. They handle wills and trusts for the oil money crowd." My heart started to beat faster. Rachel didn't know anyone with oil money. She hung out with junkies and losers. "Unless," I whispered, "unless it's about the father." Dutch spun his chair around. "The kid's father? You told me he was some homeless guy she met at a concert. That's what she told you, right?" "That's what she said." I nodded. "She said his name was Jack and he played guitar on the street corner. She said he died of pneumonia before Noah was born." Dutch cracked a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Harry, rule number 1. Everybody lies, especially junkies covering their tracks." He turned back to the screen. "Let's look at the birth certificates again." He pulled up the records. Father listed as unknown for all 3. But then he dug deeper into the court archives. He found a sealed file from 13 years ago. A paternity test ordered by the state when Rachel applied for welfare right before she left. "Here we go," Dutch whispered. "The state demanded a name so they could chase child support. She gave them a name. Jackson Cole. I had never heard the name. Jackson Cole. Who's he?" Dutch was already searching. He went quiet for a long time. The only sound was the hum of the computer fans and the moths hitting the window. Then he let out a low whistle. "Harry, you might want to sit down for this." "I am sitting, Dutch." "Jackson Cole wasn't homeless," Dutch said, his voice low and serious. "He was the black sheep. He was the secret son of Jebediah Stone." The name hit me like a physical blow. Jebediah Stone. The Stone Oil Corporation. One of the richest men in Texas. He owned half the Permian Basin. He died last month. It was all over the news. Jackson Cole was his illegitimate son, Dutch explained, reading from a legal briefing he had hacked into. Stone paid him off to stay away. Jackson lived a quiet life. He died in a motorcycle accident 4 months ago. He didn't have a will. And since he didn't have a will, I said, my mind racing, the money goes to his next of kin. Dutch nodded. And since Jackson Cole didn't have a wife or parents, it goes to his children. I finished. Dutch hit a key and a document popped up on the screen. It was a probate filing from the Dallas court. Jebediah Stone left a trust for his son Jackson. Since Jackson is dead, the trust passes to Jackson's issue. I gripped the tire iron in my right hand. It was heavy. It was cold. It was the only weapon I had. Let them go, I roared, my voice cracking over the whine of the jet engines. The scene on the tarmac froze. The bodyguard holding Emma dropped her to her feet. Lucas looked over at me, his eyes wide with disbelief and hope. "Grandpa!" he screamed. Rachel turned slowly. The wind from the turbines whipped her hair across her face. She didn't look scared. She looked furious. She looked at me like I was a cockroach that refused to die. "Get them on the plane!" she shrieked at the guards. "Now! Move!" The guards hesitated, looking at the crazy old man with a metal pipe and the wild-eyed driver with a revolver in his waistband. I marched forward. I was 70 years old. I had arthritis and a heart that skipped beats. But in that moment I felt 10 feet tall. "You touch them again and I'll break every bone in your body?" I growled, swinging the tire iron. One of the guards, the biggest one, stepped toward me. He reached inside his jacket. Dutch fired a warning shot into the air. The crack of the pistol was sharp and loud. "Back off!" Dutch yelled. "Back off, or the next one's not a warning." The guard stopped, his hands held up. Rachel looked at the guard, then at me. Her face twisted into a mask of pure hatred. She grabbed Noah by the back of his shirt and tried to haul him up the stairs herself. "No!" I shouted and I ran. I covered the distance between us in seconds. I wasn't thinking about the law. I wasn't thinking about the consequences. I was only thinking about stopping her. I reached the bottom of the stairs just as she dragged Noah up the first step. I grabbed the railing and swung the tire iron against the metal stairs. Clang! The sound rang out like a church bell. "Let him go, Rachel." She looked down at me. "You're pathetic," she hissed. "You're a broke, pathetic old man. You think you can stop this? I own them. You gave birth to them," I said. "You don't own them." Sirens. I heard them in the distance first, then getting louder fast. Blue and red lights began to flash against the white body of the plane. The airport police, the county sheriff, maybe the feds. They were all coming. Rachel smiled, a cruel, victorious smile. "You're done, Harry," she said. "You just handed me everything." She was right. I had broken bail. I had broken the restraining order. I had driven through a security gate and swung a weapon on an airfield. But I didn't care. As long as that plane didn't take off, I had won. "Freeze! Drop the weapon." The voice came from behind me, amplified by a megaphone. I turned around. 3 police cruisers had screeched to a halt behind Dutch's car. Officers were behind their doors, guns drawn and aimed at my chest. "Mr. Bennett, drop the bar. Now!" I looked at Lucas. He was crying now, standing on the tarmac. I looked at Emma, huddled next to him. I looked at Noah, still in his mother's grip on the stairs. "I love you," I shouted to them. "I love you more than anything. Don't forget that." I started to lower the tire iron. I was going to surrender. I was going to get on my knees. But the guard, the one Dutch had warned, saw his opening. He lunged at me. I reacted on instinct. I swung the bar up to defend myself. "Taser, taser, taser," a voice screamed. I heard a pop, then two sharp prongs hit me in the chest. Felt like getting hit by lightning. My entire body seized up. Every muscle contracted at once. The pain was blinding, white and hot. My legs went rigid and I fell backward, hitting the hard asphalt with a sickening thud. The tire iron clattered away from my hand. I lay there twitching, unable to breathe, unable to move. I could hear Lucas screaming my name. Grandpa!
No, Grandpa.
Boots surrounded me. Heavy knees pressed into my back. Hands wrenched my arms behind me, handcuffing me so tight the metal bit into the bone. Stop resisting, someone shouted, though I couldn't move if I wanted to. Through the fog of pain and the flashing lights, I looked up at the plane. Rachel was standing at the top of the stairs. She wasn't rushing anymore. She was watching me being dragged away like a sack of garbage. She smoothed her dress. She adjusted her hair. She leaned down to the pilot who was standing in the open hatch. "We can't leave yet," the pilot was saying. I could read his lips. "This is a crime scene now, ma'am. The police are taping off the runway. We're grounded until they clear the evidence." Rachel looked furious. She stomped her foot, but she turned and herded the kids inside the plane.